Welcome back to another English lesson, or if this is your first time here, my name is Brent. I have been teaching English in the United States for over 20 years. And today we are going to look at a news story where a lot of people are being called garbage. Some by President Trump's team and some by our very own president, President Joe Biden. We will take a look at a news clip. And of course, when watching the news, they will often use idioms, a lot of English idioms in this lesson, advanced vocabulary, and sometimes they will even use those pesky English phrasal verbs. We will talk about what an October surprise is. We will talk about how people in Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. vote. No, they are not US states, but they're something in between. Did I mention lots of English idioms in this one? Let's take a look at the news clip, and then I will come back and teach some English.
President Biden is stepping in it in a big way last night. The insult that might undermine Kamala Harris's closing argument. We'll get to all of it right now on a Wednesday. Midweek, I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning from New York.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. It is October 30th, so this could be the October surprise.
Right off the bat is another way to say immediately, or as soon as the news clip started, the reporter said, stepped in it. Joe Biden really stepped in it this time. What does that mean? Well, it's an English idiom, and it means making a mistake or getting into trouble, especially by saying something inappropriate. Yeah, our country is really divided right now. About 50% support Kamala Harris and 50% support President or former President Trump. And if President Joe Biden, called Trump supporters garbage, he is basically calling 50% of the US population garbage. Of course, Kamala Harris doesn't want that. We will see a clip from her running mate, Tim Walz, a little later saying we do not feel the same way. Every vote counts, and of course, Kamala Harris would like to get some of those Trump supporters to vote for her. If her team calls them garbage, well, of course, they will not vote for her. Let's look at a sentence that uses stepped in it. When the politician made a joke about serious issues, he really stepped in it, making people upset. And this whole thing started at a Trump rally. President Trump asked a comedian, his name is Tony Hinchcliffe, to come and speak for a couple minutes. In that speech, he said a joke about the island of Puerto Rico being basically an island of garbage. Of course, that made a lot of people mad.
President Biden is stepping in it in a big way last night.
In the news clip, they also say in a big way. The official definition, in a big way, means to a large extent or very strongly. They say President Biden stepped in it in a big way. The news report said the mistake impacted the campaign in a big way, changing how many people felt about the candidate. I must say, this news report comes from Fox News. If you've seen any of my other English lessons, you might know Fox News loves President Trump. They do not like the Democrats. So keep that in mind as you're watching this.
President Biden is stepping in it in a big way last night. The insult that might undermine Kamala Harris's closing argument. We'll get to all of it right now on a Wednesday. Midweek, I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning from New York.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Dana Perino, and this is America's Newsroom. It is October 30th, so this could be the October surprise.
Undermine. They also say that. That means to weaken or damage someone's position or efforts, often in a sneaky way, like in secret. So I don't think President Biden meant to do something in a sneaky way, but his comment could have hurt the Harris campaign. The candidate felt that these comments would undermine the hard work she had done to win over voters. The news reporter also mentions October surprise. We need to talk about that because it often happens in presidential elections. Americans always elect their presidents in November. So sometimes in October, there is some dirt or some secrets told about the candidate that might make them lose some votes. It is usually when one candidate knows some secrets about the other candidate, they release it as an October surprise. They are making a joke here because Joe Biden would not release an October surprise on Kamala Harris. He wants her to win. Remember, he's old. Some of that clip I don't think makes a lot of sense. I know he is speaking English, but the words aren't exactly said in a way that makes you understand him.
He's failed businessman. He only cares about the billionaire friends he has and accumulating wealth for those at the top. You know, he says immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. Give me a break. He wants to do away with the birthright citizenship. Who the hell has said that in the last 100 years?
I think he realizes he made a mistake as he is speaking, but he doesn't quite know how to fix it. So let's get the official definition of what an October surprise is. Unexpected news or events in October that could change how people vote right before an election. Let's use October surprise in a sentence, and then I will have a couple real examples of October surprises in past presidential elections. The news about the emails became an October surprise, which made voters question the candidate just before the election. Back in 2016, when President Trump and Hillary Clinton were running against each other, there were some leaked emails that made Hillary Clinton look kind of bad. That could be one example of an October surprise, but I have a couple more for you. Let's make it really big here. Get rid of that. All the way back in 1980, there was a president named Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter just turned 100 years old a couple weeks ago. And he was running against somebody named Ronald Reagan. He had been governor of California. He had been an actor in Hollywood. And spoiler alert, he would become president. And there were some Americans being held hostage in Iran. President Carter was trying hard to get them released. It did not happen until after Reagan was elected president. Let's take a look at a paragraph to help you with your English reading. In 1980, 52 American hostages were held in Iran, and President Jimmy Carter couldn't get them home. This made Carter look weak, which hurt his chances of winning against Ronald Reagan. The hostages were released right after Reagan became president. Some people think Reagan's team secretly delayed their release to help him win, but that's never been proven. Yeah, President Carter was really hoping to get those hostages released right before people went to vote. It didn't happen. He lost the race. Overall, I think history looks at President Carter as being a rather weak president anyway. Let's fast forward to 2000. George W. Bush. You may have heard of him. He became president despite this October surprise. DUI revelation. A revelation can also be another name for like a surprise or a thought that you have suddenly. And a DUI stands for driving under the influence. Basically, he was driving drunk. This happened many years before the election, but a lot of Americans probably don't like the idea of their president driving drunk. They possibly could have killed somebody. A few days before the 2000 election, it was revealed that George W. Bush had been arrested for drunk driving, DUI, in 1976. This surprised people, and it may have made the election closer than expected. However, Bush still won.
It is October 30th, so this could be the October surprise. Who knows? I'm sure she didn't love it. So Vice President Harris spoke in front of a crowd of what they say is 75,000 people last night in D.C., but it's this remark by President Biden on a campaign call that stole her spotlight.
And just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization of Latino is unconscionable, and it's un-American. It's totally contrary to everything we've done.
Then there was instant reaction on the stump from the former President Donald Trump. He was at a rally in real time, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Here we go. Roll it.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I have breaking news for you, Mr. President. You may not have heard this. Just moments ago, Joe Biden stated that our supporters are garbage. He's talking about everyday Americans who love their country and want to dream big again and support you, Mr. President. That's terrible.
Another English idiom they use in the news report, stole her spotlight. In the picture, there is a spotlight, but this is an idiom, so there's no actual spotlight being used here. It means took attention away from her or made people focus on something else or someone else instead. And that someone was President Biden making a mistake. And that something is, instead of focusing on her plan to become president, they were focusing on the mistake that President Biden made. The unexpected announcement stole her spotlight, making her speech less important to viewers. Puerto Rico, this is a big part of the story. Tony Hinchcliffe, the comedian, called it garbage, and then President Biden called all of Trump's supporters garbage. And you can see President Trump driving in a garbage truck.
How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden. I just wanted to let you know that 250 million people, that's what I think the real number is for making America great again. 250 million, the real number. They don't think in terms of garbage, okay? They don't use terms like that, and it's a shame. And Joe Biden should be ashamed of himself if he knows what he's even doing. And she should be ashamed because she shouldn't let him do it. She's the vice president, but I assume she's acting as the president. She should never have let that happen.
I think just to highlight the fact that President Biden said a lot of Americans were garbage. He even wore a reflective vest. It's what we call that thing. But Puerto Rico is interesting. We have 50 states in the United States. Puerto Rico is not one of them. Washington, D.C. is not one of them. Instead, they are something we call territories. Not independent countries and not U.S. states, somewhere in between. Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory in the Caribbean, or Caribbean, you will hear both pronunciations, with American citizens, often affected by hurricanes and other natural disasters. It is an island after all. It is difficult to get supplies to the island. It has recently been hit by a couple hurricanes, and getting help to that island has been difficult. Getting trash off the island or garbage off the island, I hear, is very difficult. They literally do have a problem with trash or garbage, but the citizens are not garbage. Let's use Puerto Rico in a sentence. After the hurricane, many Americans were concerned about the damage in Puerto Rico and the help people there would need.
His demonization of Latinos is unconscionable.
All right, here we go. I'm a little scared to pronounce this. I probably wouldn't say this in my normal English conversations, but unconscionable. I think that's pretty good. Unconscionable. It means something that is so wrong or unfair that it is hard to accept. You can't believe it. Many called the lack of response to the crisis unconscionable, saying everyone deserved help. Unconscionable. You can't believe it happened. Before we go any further, YouTube is now allowing me to see people who leave a lot of comments on my videos. So I would like to give two people a shout out for leaving a lot of comments. The first one is Constantine, and it looks like he has received 209 hearts, which I think probably means he has left 209 comments on my English lessons. So thank you so much, Constantine. And also Tessa. Now, she doesn't have as many comments, 29, it looks like. No, maybe 32. 32. Maybe I forgot to heart a couple of her comments. But I did have the pleasure of doing some one-on-one conversations with Tessa this summer. Thank you for all of the support, Tessa and Constantine. Now back to the English lesson. Roll it. Roll it. The news reporter says roll it. What does that mean? A command often used in TV to start showing a video clip. When the reporter was ready, she said to roll it. And the video of the speech started playing on the screen. Why don't I do that for the next clip? Okay, roll it. Even though I'm not talking to anybody, it's me who has to roll it. But let's pretend I have some other people helping me with this video. Okay, roll it.
Then there was instant reaction on the stump from the former President Donald Trump. He was at a rally in real time, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Here we go. Roll it.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I have breaking news for you, Mr. President. You may not have heard this. Just moments ago, Joe Biden stated that our supporters are garbage. He's talking about everyday Americans who love their country and want to dream big again and support you, Mr. President.
That's terrible. So you have, remember Hillary, she said deplorable? And then she said irredeemable, right? But she said deplorable. That didn't work out. Garbage, I think, is worse, right?
Deplorable. Hillary Clinton called Trump supporters deplorables. Let's talk about what deplorable means. Very bad or deserving strong disapproval. Some called the comments deplorable, saying that no one should speak that way about others. She also said back in 2016, Trump supporters were irredeemable. Irredeemable, so bad that it can't be fixed or improved. Yeah, she said that about 50% of the population. It did not go over well. It was not well received. People didn't like what she said, or at least 50% of Americans didn't like what she said. Some felt the actions were irredeemable, believing the person couldn't make up for what they did.
That's terrible. So you have, remember Hillary, she said deplorable? And then she said irredeemable, right? But she said deplorable. That didn't work out. Garbage, I think, is worse, right?
The vice president has not yet reacted, but her running mate was asked about it just a few minutes ago.
Did it step on the vice president's message?
Well, the president's clarified his remarks, but let's be very clear. The vice president and I have made it absolutely clear that we want everyone as a part of this. Donald Trump's divisive rhetoric is what needs to end.
Some say President Biden stepped on Vice President Harris's message to interrupt or ruin the impact of what she wanted to say. So on the exact day that President or Vice President Harris was wrapping up her message to the American people, President Biden called half of them garbage. The other news, distracted from her speech and stepped on her message so people didn't pay as much attention. Step on her message, stole her spotlight, very much the same thing. We also had stepped in it as being a mistake. So sometimes the word step can have some negative meanings. A misstep is another name for a mistake. Divisive rhetoric. I have talked about rhetoric before in past English lessons, but let's talk about divisive. It almost looks like divide. Divisive rhetoric. Words or messages that cause strong disagreement and separate people into opposing sides. Some people say that President Trump often uses divisive rhetoric, meaning making Americans have arguments against each other, not being on the same side, not being on the same page. The speech included divisive rhetoric, which made some people feel more distant from others. That is it. As a reminder, all of the definitions can be found in the description box, along with those example sentences. If you are still looking for more English lessons, right down there is a lesson I did about people voting early in the United States. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.